I noticed that a lot of STEAM kits out there were not very fun to build. You have to either follow instructions or there's like a fixed outcome to it. So I thought to myself, what if we can use chopsticks to build stuff? You won't feel scared to cut and tinker with it. And it's quite commonly available. The whole idea was you can allow kids to build whatever they want, put on electronics, sensors, make stuff move. It was never centered around like, let's teach kids how to build robots specifically. And then the more they develop, the more we realized that, you can actually build quite solid robots out of this. They can drive around, it's quite responsive. And this will be 10 times cheaper than traditional robotics kits out there.
We were exhibiting at one of the booths there. The kids would come by and they wouldn't leave the booth. And they'll play around with the kids, and then the parents would be like trying to drag them out. And through those 3 nights, we sold 150 kits.
The fact that parents are willing to pay for something that was so scrappy, I think that was really pretty good validation.
Welcome to the Financial Coconuts podcast, the business show. I am your occasional coconut, your seasonal coconut, and your occasional co-host, Judson. Our Chief Coconut Officer, Reggie, is not around today because he's out there expanding his empire, meeting new clients and stuff like that. So let him be. Today we have 2 very young startup founders. They've been going around making news in the mainstream media. We have Adam. And we have Kai. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adam from Stickum.
Hello everyone, I'm Kai from Stickum.
So Stickum might be a name you might be familiar with if you read Straits Times on Mothership. So Stickum is a startup that in my day job we deal with. Basically, they teach kids to build robots using chopsticks. Correct? Did I summarize it correctly? And the reason why they've been making the news all around is that they recently took part in a competition and they won $1 million. That made our PM Wong very happy. So they even got mentioned by him on LinkedIn. So I just invite them onto this show and try to understand how a couple of very young entrepreneurs, how did they get together and come up with this idea of teaching kids to build robots and it's all this whole science education kind of thing, right? And how this business model works and how they teach schools and teachers, how to guide their students. Because like what Kai told me just before we recorded, it is not really an easy thing to do at tech, especially when it's hardware. A lot of people are going software these days, but it is really hardware. And so let's go back to the beginning of the beginnings, right? So how did the 2 of you meet? And individually speaking, how did you get interested in robotics? We will start with Adam first.
So for me, I started building robots ever since I was 6. I was very fortunate when my mom bought me this solar-powered Mars rover kit. And it was not like Lego where it's just bricks where you stick on top of each other and then you get something nice. It was really a robotics kit. I had to learn how to solder in the age of 6. I was like inhaling all the fumes, not knowing I was not supposed to do that. The teacher didn't teach me and the teacher left me alone because I was the only person who signed up for that. And it took me, I think, about 4 or 5 months to build that robot. And it was so fascinating because I still remember sitting on my bed at home, watching the TV screen, looking at the instruction, and then thinking, okay, wait, what's next? What's next? Screwing screws one by one, soldering things one by one, putting on the LEDs and realizing that I wired them wrongly. And I'm like, oh shit, I have to unsolder the thing and then burn my hands many times. So that's how my robotics journey started. And that experience really, I think, kind of stayed with me. The idea of tinkering and just figuring things out on your own. Because the instruction manual was trash. It was not very helpful. Especially when it comes to the wiring of the solar panel. I still remember having to trying to connect it to many different contacts because either I couldn't read or the instruction manual didn't tell me. So I was trying to figure out where am I supposed to connect this to, because back then obviously I didn't know electronics. And that started off the whole journey for me. Then after that, I came over to Singapore from Korea and I tried to join the robotics club in my primary school. And they have a selection test there because of limited resources. And I failed the selection test. It was quite daunting. I remember going home and telling my mom about it, almost crying. And then the next day she went to school, she went to talk to the principal and begged the principal to get me in. So that's how I got into my first robotics club in Singapore. Thanks, Mom.
Wow. So you were very clear at a young age that it's ride or die with robotics. You're gonna end up being the next Tony Stark or something like that.
That was my dream.
That was your dream.
That was like every time I ask, if someone were to ask me like, who do you look up to? I'm like, Iron Man, Tony Stark's.
For me, it was less robotics. It was always more of like building random stuff, tinkering with stuff. So you can imagine like PVC knives. I'll take a PVC pipe, I'll warm it up, I'll flatten it out. Then I'll make like a CSGO karambit out of it. Or, all sorts of like flamethrowers, tasers out of disposable cameras. And then, yeah, that carried with me throughout primary school. When I was in P5, I discovered this charity called Engineering Good, which basically takes engineers and makers, people that like to build stuff, and they'll pair them with people with disabilities. So people that need solutions for their day-to-day stuff. So one thing that I really remember quite clearly was this guy that couldn't even open his house door by himself because his hands were like curled up. And we made something that attaches onto a door that with a press of a button, it can open for him and open the door also. So something as simple as opening a door, you would think, oh, it's just opening a door, right?
Yeah.
But for him, what it meant was that if he wants to go out to work or if he wants to go out to meet his friends, he has to make sure there's someone at home that can help him to open the door. So that will mean that someone always has to be on standby, watching after him. And I think that was where I discovered that or realized that engineering can be used to help people. Like building stuff can be used to help people, not just like flamethrowers that burn off your eyebrows.
Like Adam, you also went into the robotics competition circuit, right?
So I went to the School of Science and Technology, very hands-on secondary school, MOE affiliated but independent, where the curriculum is slightly different, but you still do O-levels. So there I joined the robotics club. I was never very good at robotics itself. What I did most of the time in SST, because I was always suspended or on probation, they don't allow me to take part in the robotics competitions to represent the school. I would join
because you were suspended.
Yeah, because I was always up to no good. So then they said, your punishment is probation, cannot represent the school. So lucky there was this teacher that led me into the Science TDP club, Talent Development Program. And he basically just threw me at random competitions, underwater robotics, on-ground robotics, all sorts of stuff, where it's not so robotics focused. It's more on building something that can solve some kind of solution. So for example, we need to make something that can explore the sea and measure coral data or something. So we'll take like a Tupperware box and PVC pipes. Then we'll just attach everything together, put a GoPro on it, and take a RC car apart, turn it into propellers, and drive it out to sea. And I think that was where I discovered, I'm good at tinkering and pitching ideas and talking to people, not so much on measuring stuff and calculating things like an actual engineer.
I want to talk about something juicy because I heard a rumor of within the circuit in Singapore itself that I don't know, there are coaches who or I won't say teachers, but instructors who would guide the students in doing up the robotics models, but actually they were the ones who would do up the models themselves and then enter into competition so that the protege can win. Is this a common thing?
It's not a Singapore problem. I don't know if it's a global problem, but it's definitely a Southeast Asian problem. So basically, when parents are driven enough for their students, for their children, what they do is they pay exorbitant amounts of money to these special training firms or enrichment centers. And what happens is, to the enrichment center also, if they win, their reputation increases, most students come to them. So what happens is that the teachers or the coaches will be building, there are different varying degrees to extent to which this happens, but I'm just going to give the most blatant extreme example, which is where the coach will build the robot for the students, program the robot for the students, and tell the students to remember what to say during a presentation so that they go to the competition and all they do is they press a button and regurgitate out what they remembered to say. And they oftentimes do come in as one of the winners.
Right.
So
and they never got caught, or it's just a
it's very hard to catch.
How you know?
Both of you know.
We know because they told us.
Oh, as in the kids tell you.
The parents.
So it's an open secret kind of thing.
But it doesn't happen like extensively, but we know it happens common enough that it's a problem.
Is this problem one of your driving force in democratizing or creating a solution where kids anywhere in the world can get into robotics with very low cost material. Was that something that was spurring you, or was it a
So yeah, that's a very big issue. And the second level of that is that even if the schools are not outright paying the coaches to build the robots for them, the schools that can normally afford coaches already have quite a leg up compared to this neighborhood school that the students have to figure out everything out by themselves. They have no, seniors to help them, no coaches to come in every week to literally coach them. So that was definitely one of the reasons. Like when you start Stickum, trying to equalize the playing ground for everyone. The way we design our competitions now, we literally don't tell them what the challenge is. They come on the day itself and they will build it on the day itself. So that, yeah, who's going to help you if you come on the day itself and you find out what the challenge is?
Yeah, we're motivating the development of the right skills. So if they don't know the challenge itself, then the only way they can prepare is actually to learn how to build properly, learn how to drive and program the robots properly, research about the problem statement. And yeah, this year we are running our second run of the Global Robotics Games in, I think, less than 7 days.
it is established that you want to be in robotics? Was it established that since when did you come up with this idea of using chopsticks to build robots? Because it doesn't sound like Tony Stark to me.
It was, I think, right after COVID period, September 2020, maybe COVID still ongoing. I was quite fed up after teaching a lot of robotics classes and going school to school, running these programs, because I noticed that, firstly, yeah, it was mostly upper to middle upper class parents or families that can afford to send their kids for these. And then the kids that go for these, they're usually not there because they want to. It's because mommy said that DSA is very important, so I have to go for it. And the second issue is that, yeah, apart from the accessibility thing, I realized that a lot of STEAM kits out there were not very fun to build. You have to either follow instructions or there's like a fixed outcome to it. So I thought to myself, what if we can use chopsticks to build stuff? Actually, before chopsticks, I was thinking of what materials we can use to build stuff. So I look around my house. The first idea was cardboard. And then after like an hour of thinking, I realized cardboard is not very good for building robots and stuff. And then I opened my drawer and I saw a lot of tapao chopsticks. So I took those. I realized, quite strong actually. Because when you bend them, it's made out of wood, but it's actually quite strong. You press them this way, you cannot break it. And you can cut it. You won't feel scared to cut and tinker with it. And it's quite commonly available. It's a bit of novelty, right? So then I thought, okay, how can we connect these together? We use 3D printed connectors, geometric connectors. So I texted my primary school friend, Kai Jie, and I said, hey, can you help me with this thing? It will take you like 10 minutes to design and print. Because he had a 3D printer and he also knew how to 3D model like sports cars. So if you can 3D model a sports car, confirm you can 3D print a tube that has holes in it, right? Yeah, so that's how the whole idea came about.
But what moment was it that for the both of you that decided that chopsticks is the way to go? Like because when you think about robotics, all in my very amateur mind, all I can think of is very high tech stuff. That if you really want to be a founder in robotics, you would really just go either first start with internship first, and then you go to a robotics company, Boston Dynamics or something like that, and go there, be there for like at least 10-15 years before you come out and extract the knowledge and know-how and come and do yourself.
I think
right?
It's also that we didn't start out thinking we're going to make a robotics kit. We started out thinking we're going to make a STEM kit.
Right.
So the whole idea was you can allow kids to build whatever they want, put on electronics, sensors, make stuff move. It was never centered around like, let's teach kids how to build robots specifically. And then the more they develop, the more we realized that, you can actually build quite solid robots out of this that can drive around, is quite responsive. And this will be 10 times cheaper than traditional robotics kits out there. So started out as a STEAM kit.
Yeah, I guess the first area of validation that came was in January 2021 when we did the River Hong Pao Festival. So over 3 nights, we were exhibiting at one of the booths there. All the ministers were coming down and we took a pic with PM Lee. And through those 3 nights, the kids would come by and they wouldn't leave the booth. And they'll play around with the kids and then the parents would be like trying to drag them out. And through those 3 nights, we sold 150 kits. I think it was quite a bit higher than what we were expecting. And I think that was the first point of validation where we saw so many kids having fun, and so many parents were willing to spend the money to buy it.
Yeah. And it was a crappy kit. Like, it worked, but electronics was quite horrible.
Everything was
It was
horrible.
off the shelf electronics we put together, assembled from like Shopee and Taobao. So like Arduino Uno, put it together, 3D print a casing for it. But the fact that parents are willing to pay for something that was so scrappy because we talked to them about the whole idea behind it, I think that was really pretty good validation.
Yeah. So you achieved PMF quite soon, quite fast actually.
I wouldn't call it PMF lah, but I would say it's
No lah.
like a validation of user interest.
Okay, let's call it MVP. You
Yeah,
achieve
yeah.
MVP. But then so from that point when you realize that you have an MVP to your first version, your first, let's call it proper version, right? What was your usual go-to thought process in iterating your stuff?
Still remember back then we were quite focused on just seeing how we can make the product better and better and better. I still remember printing so many different pieces and texting Kai saying that, hey, this thing, we need to change it to that. That part needs to change. Or like the PCB casing needs to change because it's too flimsy. And we were just doing a lot of free workshops also on the side to test with the kids. And it was through these experiences that where we found out what we needed to improve, and we just kept doing it again and again until one teacher came by us and said they wanted to buy it for the school. I still remember that she couldn't buy it for the school because we were not registered yet, like a registered company. So we sold it through one of our friends who had a company already. Yeah, that's how we made our first sale.
Okay. B2B should be the most, as in the majority of your revenue, right?
Yeah, almost 99%.
Almost, right? Could you go back to the beginning where you started to expand the school network? What were some of the challenges, or I'm sure it's not easy to convince schools or teachers?
In the very beginning, what happened was basically we were working with Rulang Primary School, and the teacher there, I guess, liked what we were doing quite a lot. So what he started to do was he started to host like big school event, and where they would invite other schools in the cluster to come down to their school and do workshops together. Or they would invite the teachers from other schools in the region to also come down and learn about Stickum. So that was the first way in which we started to get into other schools or start spreading to other schools. And eventually when we started doing workshops for schools, we started doing like the teachers started talking to each other. So for the first 2.5 years, most of our new schools came by because teachers talked to other teachers. Yeah, we weren't doing any kind of like outreach or marketing per se. All we did was the teacher reach out to us, email us, call us, message us, and then we'll say, hi, yeah, this is Stickum. And they were like, hey, I heard about you guys from teacher blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, can you come down to my school and maybe do a workshop or do a demo? All that. Yeah, and that's how we initially started to spread through the schools in Singapore. I think through that method, we reached around 26, 27 schools.
How do you target? As in, do you identify this school in the north is most representative of the north population? I go to this school first.
So I tried doing that at first. I thought it would be good to scheme up, like identify the schools in every cluster, do all this planning. Then I realized the sheer volume of just sending out emails to everyone would be way more effective than trying to pick which schools we can target. But it's good to understand that, because then when all the schools convert, you can kind of see which schools you want to try to cultivate into a champion school.
So you go onto gov.sg and download all the teachers' emails?
No, the one by one, go to the school website, look for the HOD, ICT, copy, put into a spreadsheet.
So this was all before HALT, right? And for our viewers and listeners who don't know what HALT is, basically it is being described as a Nobel Prize in education.
For students.
For students. And it's always being held where? Is it in a fixed country? London. Why did you decide to join that competition?
We didn't decide. We were told to. Basically, the HALT's regional manager for Asia Pacific messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I feel like you guys would be a good fit for this competition. Try signing up.
You were target for their BD. Okay. And so you sign up.
I remember ignoring that, and she messaged me again and I said, okay, I'll try.
But so you went in without, I mean, of course you did your basic research, right? But so what was your decision-making process? Because it involves flying over. Was there an entry fee that you need to pay?
So basically the whole process is a quick rundown for everyone. The HALT Prize has multiple stages. The first one is your school stage. So that means if you should belong to a university. And within your school, if your school is a registered campus under HALT, and they're going to have a school level competition. And the winners from that would go for the national round held in the anchoring university in the country. In Singapore, that's NUS. So we went straight to the nationals one, and we actually lost. We got second place. And so then what happened was they suggested that we apply for the open round, the open application round, which means that for anyone who is in a university that's not registered but still wants to apply, you can just apply online. That's probably the toughest way to get to the next stage, but somehow we got shortlisted to the next stage, which is the digital incubator round. So the digital incubator is digital, online, and happens across the world, across all the different countries. And there they had 48 teams. So out of 15,000 teams, they shortlisted 48 teams for the digital incubator stage. So you can imagine how hard it was for the winning schools of every country to even get in. Then from the 48 teams, they selected the top 24 teams to go to London for the accelerated stage. Yep. And in London, the 24 teams were trimmed down to the top 8 teams at Google HQ in London. That's the semifinals, and the finals happened at Tate Modern this year, the museum. It's a very cool museum. And so we're doing in this big tanker.
So at every round, what was the material that you were expected to submit? A totally brand new POC or something like that?
Actually, no. From the very beginning, it's just a pitch. So when you go to the the accelerator phase in London, right? There's a lot of due diligence that happens. I mean, which makes sense because if they're going to invest $1 million into a company, they better make sure that it's a company, right? So there was a lot of due diligence where we had to prepare all our financials, prepare all our user data, our evidence, our impact numbers, metrics, pictures, videos, everything that we could prove that what we're doing, we have generated the revenue that we said that we have generated, and also to show the potential that the future claims that we're making, we need to show something that can suggest that that's possible. Yep. So these were all part of the evaluation process.
I'm very interested in the proof of future claims thing because, I mean, amongst our listeners, we also have actual startup entrepreneurs. We also have aspiring entrepreneurs. We also have been there, done that SME bosses lah. But then amongst our listeners, they often would therefore also go to pitches, right? And so this whole thing about proving future impact is a matrix that I think a lot of people cannot escape. And in your field, can I say that although you are doing robotics, you are also a crossover or overlapping with social entrepreneurship somehow?
Yeah, we are a social enterprise.
Okay, you are a social enterprise, right? Can you explain a little bit to our listeners how do you derive this whole proof of future impact kind of thing?
Firstly, it comes down to what is the impact you're creating first. So for us, our mission is to bring quality STEAM education to every child because right now STEAM education is not so accessible. So that means that one of the ways in which we measure our impact is, okay, to how many children have we brought STEAM education to? So that's how we measure it. And for us to prove future potential to increase this number was actually quite easy because we have already done it in Singapore. We have already done it in 11 other countries at that point in time during the competition. And we knew different mechanisms to expand that again and again and again. But some of the other teams, it was much harder for them because they had no customers at all. They were pre-revenue. Some of them were even pre-product. So to them, they had to prove a lot more things. Like, okay, this is how the product is going to work. This is our prototype. This shows like what we're trying to build is actually possible. And then from there on, extrapolate essentially how they're going to create impact.
What are some of the common misconceptions about a social enterprise?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. I realize it depends from region to region. Some regions understand that social enterprises are for profit. Some regions have this understanding that, social enterprise, that means you're a non-profit. So just to clear the air, social enterprises are for-profit companies who exist to make social impact or environmental, some kind of a impact.
When you go and pitch to people or when you talk to new prospect customers and you tell them you're a social enterprise, and then when they see your price tag, I don't know what your price tag is. It still $60 or has it now become $200? Would it be like, oh, it's too expensive?
We talk to schools. We are not a social enterprise. We work with the school as it is because it has to be a functional business model, not a charity giving away like free sets. So, I mean, at least in Singapore schools and Indonesian schools, there's never ever a mention of word of social impact. The social impact part comes from either running programs or even as a whole broadening the scope of kids that we can reach. Because in every school, there will be kids that are disadvantaged. So if you can bring accessible quality programs to the whole school, then in a way, we're already expanding the scope of like how many kids can access quality STEAM education.
How many markets do we have outside of Singapore?
12 countries now.
Main markets, Singapore, Indonesia.
Vietnam, Hong Kong.
And because just now we were talking about different marketing tactics, right? And that you need marketing for overseas, right? What were some of the differences in customer outreach in these different countries? What's your main channel for expansion to acquire?
Every country is unique, and what matters to us most, or what is the most crucial component to our regional expansion into any country, is a country partner who understands how to work with the local schools, ideally public schools, but private schools or semi-private schools also okay. Because it is through these partners that we know how we are supposed to engage the schools. Because the needs of Singaporean schools are drastically different from the needs of Indonesian schools or needs of Vietnamese schools or Hong Kong schools. And so first, the partner needs to understand what is this painful gap that Stickum can fill within their own country's system. And then secondly, be motivated enough to actually promote us and do workshops beyond the ground with the schools and talk to them about us, organize events. So we found that finding that right partner is the most important first step when it comes to trying to expand into a new country.
And these partners, are they usually a school, a teacher, a public servant, or are they
Depends.
a private tuition center also that kind?
It really depends. So for example, I think in Indonesia, it started off with a school, and now we also have a distributor there who's helping promote Stickum quite widely. For example, in Vietnam, it took us almost 2.5 years to find the right partner. But recently, we found the right partner. Basically, this is a partner that is also a semi-startup, and they are very well acquainted with how to get things approved by the government for educational use. Yeah. So in Vietnam, bureaucracy is a very big issue. And these guys somehow figured it out. And so they are currently already working with hundreds of different public schools in both in rural and provinces, not just in the cities. So, and they somehow heard about Stickum and what we were trying to do. So they got quite interested. And they were already used to organizing events, conducting workshops, conducting classes for schools. So when they heard about us, they're like, okay, this is a perfect fit. This is the equipment that we need to reach the provincial schools, to regional schools, the public schools that cannot afford more of the higher end robotics products that they are currently using.
So let's just use Vietnam as an example. This partner that you have there, they are a professional educational supply distributor? Or what
More
do
like a education providing firm. So they have trainers, they go down to in Vietnam, the schools for special classes, the schools will employ external trainers to come down to the school and train the students. So this is one of those companies that provides this service to the public schools.
And then they draw a commission from you then, is it?
So they would be paid by the school for providing that service. For us, they are our distributor, because then now they have our kits, they have to know how to teach using our kits. And then they sell to the schools, they can now provide a service to the schools that previously the schools couldn't afford, which is using the more expensive robotics kits. So now these provincial schools can also now pay them and say, hey, I want you guys to come down and teach my students robotics using Stickum.
Is Vietnam the most difficult market for you thus far? Given bureaucracy, given that you're also dealing with students indirectly, etc., etc.
I would say it is the tougher one, yes. I mean, there's another major issue with Vietnam, which is importing. Importing anything into Vietnam is a pain in the ass. For example, if I ship something to Hong Kong, let's say you have a house in Hong Kong and I ship it to you, I can just ship it to you. I don't need to prepare any document. I don't need to do anything. And there's no import tax, so it's perfect. But for Vietnam, no matter what you ship, in my experience, it has been that if the recipient is firstly not registered with the government and approved by the government to receive your products, they cannot receive your products. So what happens is it always gets stuck at the customs. The customs would reach out to the local person, and if they cannot produce the right documents, it will either be thrown or destroyed or just kept there forever. This is a step further than what we are used to because, for example, in Cambodia, right? We ship something there, there's an import tax that needs to be paid, and it also needs to be validated that the recipient is there to pay it. So what they would do is they'll call up the local recipient and then ask them to pay up and check with them some other administrative details. And if all checks out, it goes through. Sometimes people in this customs do exploit that criticality of the situation and ask for more money than they should, but it is what it is as for now. But in Vietnam, they just said no. So yeah, we have lost not a lot, but a few kids to that.
Okay. I want to talk about your, right now is you have 3 people, as in 3 main co-founders working in the team. Are there freelancers helping you with all the logistics and stuff, or is it still just you?
We have our full-time guy. So now we have 3 full-timers, excluding us. One is our operations guy. So he manages our orders, fulfillment, manufacturing, assembly, everything. So he's the guy handling most of the logistics. I only come in when there's problems. Secondly is our electronics R&D guy. So he's like a electrical embedded systems engineer. So he's overlooking the development, maintaining and fixing of our current products, as well as overseeing the development of our new product. And then the third guy is very recently joined. He's helping us engage the schools. Actually going over in the future, he's going to do part of what we do with the schools, going down to the schools, pitching with the schools, doing workshops with the schools, doing teacher workshops and training the teachers as well.
This chemistry, both of you, or with amongst your founding team that you have, was it since day one, or was it something? Is it a product of numerous disagreements and fights and everything? Was it that smooth sailing since the beginning? Like you just click
Numerous
like that?
disagreements.
What sort of disagreement? I mean, it's very natural, right? But just give other people out there who are looking for co-founders or who are going through a difficult time with their co-founders, like what sort of disagreements in the beginning? What sort of what differences in philosophy in running a business back then?
And I think this is important for co-founders to have also, which is to be able to think very differently from each other, so that you're not just tunnel visioning yourself and the team. So we think very, very differently, and that also, of course, causes a lot of disagreements. But I think over time, we also realize that, well, this is what you understand of the same situation that I understand, but I understand different parts of it. So the aim should be to come together and hear each other out and then try to build a fuller picture together and then find the best decision forward. But of course, that's much, much easier said than done. But over the years, I think, given the way the company has worked out, I think it has worked. An example that I can think about would be like the way the PCB is designed. So initially, in our first version of the PCB, we were arguing a lot about how the pins and how the components should be placed. It was coming more from a user experience aesthetics angle. I was coming more from an engineering practicality standpoint. And then obviously those two two different schools of thought. Then there were a lot of disagreements, and they were like, it should be there. Why? How does it make any sense that it should be there? Like, and then all that stuff. So yeah, it got, and we were kids lah. So I think we got pretty heated up about it to a point where we were like, I think I was just like, okay, never mind, I'm done. It can look whatever the way you want. I don't care anymore. Just do what you want to do. And then if it needs to be fixed, we'll just fix it in the future.
Winning the Hulk prize, right, naturally got you a lot of publicity with that volume of money, right? Has any investors come to you?
There has been a few investment VCs that has reached out to just have a talk, because I think the way they work is they also essentially have the same kind of lead generating tools that a lot of other companies use. So to them is publicity tagged with some kind of a big money amount, and then it literally appears on their radar, like in their dashboard. Oh, you might want to look at Stickum, or this company came out on this news article, this news article, and recently won something. So I think because of that, a few, I think 4 VCs, 5 VCs reached out. But that doesn't mean that
It's part of their job.
Yeah, it's part of their job. Yeah, it's part of their job to like hunt down potential investments. But of course, when we go down and share that we are more of like a social enterprise, and this is how we project to grow, this is how we project to scale, it is not really this is a blanket statement, doesn't apply to everyone. But I think more often than not, it doesn't apply to the kind of multiples that they're looking for in the VC space.
So you decide, you will bootstrap lah, at least for the foreseeable future.
Actually, can we even call ourselves bootstrap now with the $1 million?
I mean, we bootstrapped all the way till the Hulk prize. And the Hulk prize, just to clarify also, UC Berkeley has banned their students from going for the Hulk prize.
Why?
Because Help Prize, to them, what they say is that Help Prize promotes themselves as a prize, like, a prize,
Anything.
like a lottery, like you win a cash amount, grant kind of thing. But to clear the air, it's an investment. So it's essentially a seed funding. So they take X amount of your company for the $1 million.
Which is fair lah, to make it sustainable.
I think it makes sense actually.
It's just a play of a word. It's skill based though. It's not lottery,
Skill-based.
right? You have to fight for it. So, I mean, other than expanding into countries, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, right? With this amount of money, right? What other iterations in terms of formats do you plan to launch with it? Is it still going to be chopstick robotics, or do you have plans to go into B2C one day? How does it look like in the future?
So the current allocation of the $1 million is 40% to production and scaling up our production capacity. Because right now demand is here, supply is here, our rate of production capacity is here. So we need to not just match it, but project what demand is going to be and increase it all the way there. Then 25% of it is for establishing sales teams and creating awareness in the market. So it includes marketing, includes ways of creating demand. Then the last 25% is for the next generation product, which currently we are innovating on the electronics component. And the mission behind that is to bring university level technologies and simplify it enough such that primary school students and secondary school students can make use of it. So for example, ideally, we would see primary school students being able to build functional robots that will follow their grandparents on its own. So using CV and stuff to follow them to the grocery shopping, and then when it's too heavy, they can put it into the robot and then it'll follow them back home. Or for them to be able to set up CCTV systems to watch their pets at home when they go overseas, and maybe even manipulate like remote control robots over the internet. Yeah, so this is the immediate one. But when it comes to like consumer market, it's something that we're looking at as well, but not focusing on. We are just probing to see what might work at the current juncture. But it is not our main focus right now.
I think consumer is inevitable lah.
It's inevitable. I mean, we constantly have demand. Every month we are selling like over $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of stuff to consumers on the side. So they just come in and buy. And we do have a platform for it. So if there are any consumers, parents out there that wants to buy, just buy it. We have a platform built around it. It's quite fun. Yeah. But it's not our main focus. So for the parents out there, what you'll get access to is a consumer-oriented platform, an account for your kid. It gamifies the process, makes it fun, but you also get access to the resources that the schools get access to. So you see like materials that are aligned with your curriculum and your science and your math topics.
How is that? Wait, how is the process gamified?
So point systems, streak systems, bell systems, and then there's also like my portfolio page where I get to see all my creations, and then there's this showcase page where I get to see not just my creations but other creations by other students. And you can see how many people liked it, what comments are on it.
Oh, that's very smart. That's a very way to how do I call it? I want to the word is humanize, but it's actually not humanize. Very easy way to entertain. Making robotics it is already entertaining, but when you add a gamification system out there, yeah, it is. But and then that got me to thinking about your robotics competition happening in Pongo, right? Can you describe a little bit, like, this is the second year that you're having it. Obviously, I would think that when you created this competition, it was more like a B2B event, show to people that this is what you have. I might be wrong, but was it like that, or was it more like?
The idea of the Global Robotics Games for us is less of a competition to find out who's the best in the world, but more to bring everybody from the different countries that we operate in together down to an annual event where they get to interact with one another, figure out what students out there are capable of and are building, and just have that sense of interconnectedness that this product, this ecosystem that they're in, is not just in their school, it's not just in their classroom, but actually extends globally. And to get the people to come to a country, we built a competition around it. So these competitions are UN SDG goals aligned. So every year we're going through each goal. So this year is UN SDG 1. Last year we did water scarcity. So this year they're going to learn how to distribute resources, but I cannot tell too much because the game will be released on the day itself.
one final wrapping question. If there's one piece of advice each of you can give to somebody of your similar age, right, who are starting out with whatever they are trying to do in terms of a startup or a business that they firmly believe in, what would it be? Yeah, start with Adam first.
I think resilience is one of the most underrated components of entrepreneurship. It takes an incredible amount of resilience to make something remotely successful. And I think a lot of people give up too early. Resilience is very different from being like stupidly stubborn. It just means that you have a problem that you want to solve that resonates with you so strongly enough that you'll not give up because what you're doing now doesn't work. You can always change what you're doing and keep trying.
22-year-old me or 70-year-old me, 17-year-old me, like when we started Stickum, I think I would say that if you have like some idea or some inkling of what you might be interested in solving, like just do it. Because at that age, the only worry you have is literally your studies. And the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more real like life will get. Then the barrier to starting something, that fear and everything will get larger and larger and higher. So yeah, I think if you have an idea, literally just start immediately. Don't wait for your holidays. Don't wait for your exams to be over. Because if not, you'll be sleepwalking through your whole schooling life. Then, oh shoot, got NS. Then, oh shoot, uni start. Shag lah, tired. Don't need start lah. It's best to just start at whatever age you are, as young as possible.
Don't procrastinate. Don't be a floater in life. Better find something that you can be resilient for. So that will be it. Okay. I wish you both and your colleague who is not here today all the best. Hopefully you will scale very big and very well. And I wish you all the best. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our socials and our newsletter. Until the next episode, I am Judson. Reggie will be back soon. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.